people really scared about it because they thought, you know, if we get it wrong, you know, the accusations of a German...
you'll be lynched.
Yeah,
you
worse
will be
than that.
probably lynched.
You know, if you get the Mini wrong, a German company reinterpreting a British icon and getting it wrong would be a war probably. At any rate, they chose, normally if you design a new car for a company, the company will probably have the budget to do through 3 new proposals. So you'll do sort of a nice update, sort of a bit further on, and then one where it's the designers on some kind of things that make them think way out there. Anyways, but BMW didn't want to get it wrong, and instead of just doing 3 full-size prototypes for the design, they went out and chose a bunch of designers around the world, and there were 15 of us. And the budget was absolutely huge. Never again, I think, will a company spend that much money to do a sort of a design theme approach. But 15 new designs for the original Mini. That was they were all shown in October of '97 at the Gaydon Heritage Museum. And so we had them all fanned out. You had everything from sort of, we had 6 months to do the cars. You had 1 month to design them, 5 months to have it built with your own team of modelers. And at the end of the 6 months, we all presented them. We had everything from where the designer looked like he'd actually slept those 5 months. And the last month, it just scaled up the original Mini to where on the other extreme, you had the designer really taking something we don't know, but it didn't look like a Mini. And basically, they had to research and sort of go through which would be the 21st century Mini. And quite a few proposals, and basically the one they chose was right in the middle, which was my design. And the interesting thing, I think, that nobody else did on their proposals was sort of carry that emotion of the past, of the original Mini, and bring it into the future, sort of the technology, the future thing. And what I did was, because the Mini was actually a 1959 car and hadn't evolved for 40 years to '99, it was basically the same body style. I had 4 weeks. My first week, I actually designed what could have been the '69 Mini. Then I did the second week, the '79, the '89, the third week, and the 1999 Mini sketch was basically my interpretation of how the Mini could have evolved. And that's why it always gutted me, it always disturbed me when the car did come out, that a lot of journalists were calling it a retro design, when in reality for me it was the future of what a Mini could look like in the 21st century. It was adding sort of an evolutionary growth or DNA pattern to the original Mini. That's why it kind of looks like the old one, but it's a modern interpretation of it. So that's why I felt the car was.
And I think it's fair to say, who here agrees by show of hands that Frank's designed BMW Mini is a future classic?
Yes.
I
hope you said that, because we got one coming up on Wheeler Dealers, and it really is a future classic.
Yeah.
There is a couple of little details on this car that Mr. Stephenson is now going to reveal to us.
Yeah.
One of them we can't see because it's round the back. It's the exhaust pipe. So tell us about the exhaust pipe.
There's one thing about the degrees of angle upwards on the exhaust pipe that I don't want to go into, but the original theme of the exhaust pipe, I remember it was a late October night, just before the presentation, which was going to be on a Friday at 10 a.m. So, of course, you're running to the last minute to get the full-size clay fit ready. And our team of modelers, and my team of modelers, 5 of us, basically finished at midnight going into the next day. And so this was October 1995, 5 years before the Mini was launched. And we were sitting there staring at it at midnight. Now, if you stand 30 feet away from this clay model, you think it's a real car. That's how exact the results are when these guys actually go to town on producing the models. So it's about 4 a.m. and I think, you know, they're all pretty much, you know, they've drunk as much as you could drink up to that point. They were celebrating that if anybody beats our design, then we got to really hand it to them, because the car looks absolutely spot on. So I gave it one last look before I went home to catch a few hours of sleep, and I stood behind the car realizing how did I forget to put an exhaust pipe on the back of the car. So I went up to Colin and said, Colin, we forgot to put an exhaust pipe on the model. He goes, well, it's just a model, it doesn't matter. I said, no, the original Mini had this amazing exhaust pipe, which is part of the character of the original car. We've got to do something. I said, well, look, they're flat on their backs, they can't work. And he's drinking his Budweiser, saying, I'm not going to start at 4 a.m. to build you an exhaust pipe. So I took his can, I cut half of it off, polished up the outside of the bottom half of the can, and you know that little lip it has on the bottom of the can? When I flipped it over, put a hole in the bottom of the can and shoved it into the clay in the back. I don't know, because we were partly drunk, but it looked absolutely like the best exhaust pipe we'd ever seen. So we left it that way. The next day in the show, the car was chosen, and my boss, again, Chris Bangle, says, "Frank, great job, but never ever waste a modeler's time making such a detailed exhaust pipe." And I was too embarrassed to tell him it took me 4 minutes, and it was a beer can. And eventually, a couple years later, the supplier of the exhaust tip came over and said, "How would you like it to be?" And I gave him that replica or that actual beer can, and they went and produced it. So a lot of you probably don't realize it, but the Mini Cooper from 2000 to 2006 had a Budweiser can on the back of it.
How good is that? See, I told you there's a couple of stories that have surprised you. That's fantastic. But the other one that really caught me by surprise, and this is the one I'm trying to get to, is the bit that you can see on this car, and that's those wonderful, bulbous, beautifully shaped, quite a handful, wing mirrors. Tell us about the wing mirrors, Frank.
But bear in mind, the last time you told us this, we were drunk.
We were really drunk, right? But I mean, you can smarten it up for the audience.
No, I'll try and tell it in a very nice way, because it is a nice thing. Actually, I'm very proud of it. But my basic influence for design is, I love fashion shows, architecture, and all those kind of things. But for my inspiration for design, which I love to use what we call timeless design. In other words, that car should still look good another 20 years from now. So I try to get influenced by things that aren't trendy, that go in 1 year and out the next. So a lot of my inspiration, like I said, is natural design. And what could be more natural than animals, but also human beings? So I spent, and I think you'll understand it in an artistic kind of way. One of the most nicest features on any female, from a man point of view, is pretty much this area around here. So I spent a full week drawing the nicest ones I could draw. And basically I got a shape down that I thought was very, very nice. We modeled it, it felt right, felt nice. And we actually modeled that in as the rear view mirrors on the car, to the extent that even the indicators, which are usually low in the front of the bumper, we put them in a much more visible area, which was right in the middle of the mirror. So basically a lot of people started getting the feeling that it was too close to a breast. Yeah? So we had the nipple as the indicator, and actually the shape of the mirror was a breast. And I loved it. I mean, a lot of people loved it. They didn't know why they loved it. They just thought it looked right. And we had to basically take the nipple part out and relocate it. But basically the mirror on the Mini feels right and looks right because it's just a natural piece of design that most people like anyway. So
basically it's a boob.
It's a boob.
So when you go up to your Mini next or go past a Mini, just touch that mirror. I have, because we just bought one, and go and touch it, and you go, oh yes, of course it's a boob.